Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of Pussy Woman. I'm so excited to be talking today with Ania Grimone, and I would love to just open up the space for Ania to explain who she is and what she does, because it feels really nourishing as we've been previously talking. And yeah, it feels really good to give that space to you to explain.
Thank you. Thank you. So who I am and what I do, they're probably similar, but in terms of my work, I am a clinician of Chinese medicine. I've been at it for about 24 years. I work in an academic medical center. And for the last 12, I've been working with women's sexuality, working with trauma, lots of bridging Chinese medicine and the philosophy and the wisdom of the ancient Chinese medicine with the Taoist practices and with somatic trauma work. There's so much pain, both in this life and throughout generations, that we have wrapped up in our sexuality, our identity as women. And I feel that I learn things on one side of what I do, and then I extrapolate that into the other side of what I do. So my work on both sides informs one another. So I work primarily with women, restoring their relationship with their bodies, restoring the relationships with the internal knowing of who they are, not what they're told, not the labels, not the constructs, not the roles that we play, but the essence of who we are. And I'm an academic. I do this with cutting edge science and a lot of brainy stuff. And I am kind of a modern witch, I would stick needles in people for a living. Like I don't have to understand everything to know that it works. Nature works in ways I don't understand, and I don't need proof. I can just look at it. So there's a lot of organic crossover between all the things that I do. But in terms of coaching space, this is really my company, Venus Co-Leadership. It's really about restoring the leadership quality in a woman by connecting her to the core of who she is, which is her sex, not in terms of sexual encounters, but in terms of the quality of vibrancy and aliveness that's an essence of feminine energy. In Chinese medicine, sexual energy is the jing, is the essence, it's the energy that underlies life force. So our beating hearts and our digestion and the physical energy is sourced in jing and sexual energy. Even embodied spirituality is sourced in the sexual energy. So a lot of it's just the reclamation and restoration and return to the roots of a woman.
Ah.
This is what I am and what I do.
Honestly, that was so yummy. And this is also part of having these conversations, is really opening and holding a space for the feminine and really like revering and celebrating this part of us that has been so silenced. And let's not talk about that too much, but let's not look too excited or joyous or like turned on, which is what, you talking about it, I was just feeling this building kind of just vibrancy and aliveness and just hearing you. So I'm just letting it out and inviting everyone else to as well. It is such a joy to hear how you were explaining that. So thank you. Welcome. It's just like, oh, let's all feel that connection within ourselves as well, because when we hear others speak from that place of truth, and that has been your journey and how you're working with other women, it just feels so good. It's like, yeah. And we can feel ourselves, just relaxing, just softening, just letting go into what the space is offering. So I really feel like that would be a beautiful invitation for those of you watching. Just give yourself permission to really receive and to really connect with those roots, like you said, the root, the source, the nourishment that is there. And yum.
Yeah, and you say it's there. It's like this is the
Yes,
journey of remembrance. This
yes,
is not, we're not creating anything. We're just
yes.
remembering. It's like going to the bones and remembering who we are.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. We're not, it's not a kind of forging, is it? It's not this kind of sense of
Hmm.
like I'm having to like grab something from over here to kind of like push
Hmm.
something
Yeah.
together or mold something together. It's already
Hmm.
so right there. And I would
Yeah.
love actually this to lead into my question that I'm opening these conversations with, which is how did you first come to connect with your womb, with your pussy, with this seat of creational self for us as women?
Hmm.
And how did that kind of, yeah, how did that arrive within you,
Yeah.
that invitation to explore deeper?
So I think the reason why I have so much compassion for women struggling with it, because I came from a really messed up background. I grew up in Poland, very conservative, religious household, very conservative, repressed culture. I remember when I was 12 years old and I discovered my body, and I think I was just touching my body at night. And my dad came in the room and saw it and just blew up. And there was so much shame. And he called my mom and they just shamed the hell out of me. And it was in this moment that sexuality became evil and bad and just not available. My body shut down. It opened me up to a young my 20s to a tremendous amount of sexual abuse and violence and all of that, just this disconnection, this lack of boundaries, there's no having a sense of ownership of my own body. And then when I was 32, my son was born. This was the first moment when I brought him home and I held this human in my hand, realizing, holy shit, like there's no return policy on this. Like this is it's gonna stay here forever. And at the same time, this my body created life. My body created this human. This just like it just my heart ripped open, not my womb, my heart blew up. And this was like the first moment when I started connecting. Like there's more to me that my brain. My energy was very masculine. It was all about performing. It was all about having the best grades and having a career and just it was a very masculine performative kind of push. Part of my trauma, a compensatory mechanism was perfectionism and always working. And this was the first time when I connected to like, wow, there's actually more to me than my brain. But it was not until 10 years later when I was pregnant and I went for a routine exam and I found out that I lost my baby.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Friday. My son was with me. Did not see that one coming. It just took me completely by surprise. And I could not get a D&C till Wednesday. So I was carrying my deceased baby in my body. And there was so much grief. There was so much pain. There was so much rage. I felt like I was just going to suffocate. I was going to die. I felt like I was just going to blow up. There was nowhere for me to go. And there was a time when I was doing a lot of pole dancing. And I was like, I'm going to do something or I'm just going to blow up, go mad. So I sent my family out of the house and I turned music really loud and I danced like a mad woman. I moved my body the way I don't think I've ever moved my body before. I screamed, I cried, I pounded pillows, I raged, my body took over. My mind had no capacity to hold the magnitude of the loss that I felt at the time. And it was, I don't remember even if it was an hour or two, it was in a grand scheme of things, it was a drop in the ocean. When that was done, I was done grieving. And I just sat there, I was like, what just happened? And this was the beginning of the exploration of my body, the somatic ways of us processing through this really intense experience that led me towards trauma work. And at first, it was more of a still cognitively based, like I didn't quite know how to get there. So
Yeah.
I worked at the periphery. So it was like a volcano, like a hurricane. So I was working through kind of sides of it, working through different layers. And then I just ran out of everything to work on
Mm.
except my sexuality. And the moment I dropped into working with the womb, that's where all the pieces dropped. That's where it all came together. It was like, ah, there you are. There I was. There I found the core of me, the missing piece, the missing element that always made me feel like I was a little bit out of step. Like I kind of had it together, but I didn't. But there's
Mm.
always a little piece of dissonance. And it was not until I truly connect to the womb and could feel both the exquisite pain, the exquisite disconnection, the weight of the trauma on my own and my ancestors, and the repression, the societal repression, and the incredible power and aliveness and sexiness and pleasure and radiance that was there, and started unpacking that I really understood what it's all about.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was kind of a wild journey.
Yeah. Wow. So your body
Yeah.
was really just going, it's time to go deeper now. Like you've had this experience
Mm-hmm.
and you're up to like here. The
Yeah.
only way is to really go through it.
Mm-hmm.
And had you done, so were you saying you were doing pole dancing before, so that you
Mm-hmm.
sort of knew you were in your body in that way before that?
I think I've been dancing since I was 6. I think
Okay.
dance has been my primary therapist since I was
Yeah.
6 years old.
Yeah.
So this was my release valve. This was something that in this very repressed, masculine, head-driven reality, I could let the steam out by
Mm.
just getting into dance and forgetting everything. Like when I dance, my mind just turns off.
Yeah.
And I think in this incredibly traumatic moment of loss, I think it was like this everything got magnified.
Yeah.
And on some level, I realized that my brain just doesn't simply have a capacity to process what's happening. It's like a square peg in a round hole. The
Yeah.
tool doesn't fit.
Mm.
I had enough of an understanding of my body and movement to know to start moving, turn on the music and start moving.
Yeah.
So I, yeah, it was like this from the very beginning when I was a little child. That was the thread.
Mm.
I remember I had this beautiful memory when I was 4 years old, and I felt so lonely in my house. I felt like I couldn't go to my parents, I couldn't go to my older sister. So I got up and I sat by the moon, by the window, and it was a full moon.
Mm.
And I just like, as a 4 year old, I would just look at the moon. I was like, "You are my friend. Please look out for me." And it was like this silver thread connecting me to something bigger than me. And I feel like that connection kind of led me intuitive to doing things that I didn't really have cognitive reason to do.
Mm.
Dance was, I think, one of these intuitive little pangs that I followed when I was very young. It's like,
Mm.
I just want to dance. I didn't care if I was good. I didn't care to be performing anything. It's like there was something magical about moving body to music that
Mm.
would allow me to enter the world nobody else had access to. So it's like it was this intuitive inner wisdom bone kind of calling to just say, just pay attention. And throughout my life, especially in my early 20s, where a lot was happening, I lost touch with that.
Yeah.
And on the other side, when my son was born, and I was just like, oh my God, there's actually, my body's pretty amazing.
Mm.
This resurfaced again. So yeah, so it's just kind of following the breadcrumbs. I've been following breadcrumbs.
Yeah. And really deeply listening to what is coming forward, which I really feel is a big part of this process, isn't it? Of reclaiming this space for ourselves as women, is to really listen to those small nudges to start
Mm-hmm.
with, because I always kind of ask and get asked, like, how did you start doing this? Because, from a place of feeling so just so sort of full of other things that you need to do, or operating in the way where it's like a list of things to do. How do we come from that list of things to do into being more, creating the space to be more, so that we can hear more of ourselves? How
Yeah.
what I would say, creating space, that's what I always say to people, to just carve out some space so that from that space you can allow the things to arise that are ready. But also, how would you offer something there? Because I feel like that piece between, well, how do I go from, being really all pent up to letting it out? Because it is very much an unraveling process.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is about, for me, there was so much negativity, there was so much trauma, there was so much disconnection. But there was one thing, the desire for freedom. And for me, how it manifested a lot is knowing that I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. So I think we often hear like, oh, don't say what you want, what you don't want, just say what you want. But sometimes that's not available. Sometimes people don't know what they want because they don't even know, they cannot conceive what's possible. So sometimes the having a desire for a feeling, not desire for I want to live on an island, in a beautiful house and make a lot of money, but how do I want to feel? And making that your lighthouse, and then paying attention. Does this, whatever I'm doing, does it make me feel this way? No, it's not it. That's not it for me. Okay, I don't know what it is yet. I don't even know how to get there because I don't know what it is, but I know what I desire, and I know this is not it. And being open, and I keep asking, I keep looking, because you have this amazing structure at the bottom of your brain called the reticular activating system. It is a deletion device. Your conscious brain processes about 4 million, a million bits of information per second. Your conscious about 40. But your brain sees, hears, feels, perceives everything. What gets into your conscious awareness is determined by how you calibrate your reticular activating system. It deletes everything that is not deemed important by the virtue of what you pay attention to. So for me, I programmed my RAS for freedom. I want freedom. I want freedom. I want freedom. So it started filtering things that were relevant to my freedom. If I focus on, I don't want it, I don't want it, I don't want it, I will see everything I don't want because I only have so much of a bandwidth. So there has to be this little piece of, what do I want to notice? What is relevant to me? And that could be something as big as generic as I want freedom. I don't even know what the hell it means, but I have sense of what it would feel like. So the reticular activating system can start picking up on conversations, opportunities. They're not magical. I mean, they're kind of hard, but there's neurology involved in it. Is that when we have these amazing, all of a sudden conversations of people or opportunities, it's because we program our brain to actually notice that. You could be in Starbucks and all of a sudden hear a conversation that's relevant to something you were talking about yesterday. Is it magic? No, but your brain now knows that it's important, so it starts picking up on that. So have the desire. And just notice, okay, this is not it, and just keep going.
I love that. It kind of connects with what we were talking about before about the mycelium and how we are all interconnected, and how actually when you're attuning your brain, your mind, this is a like technology to tune that into what it is that you want to receive. Like the same thing with the mycelium. It's like you're connected, you're never not connected. So there's that, like, am I turning it on or am I turning it off? And like you said, what am I tuning my radio station into? What am I listening for? And so that's beautiful. Yeah, I love that. That's so simply explained, which I feel will be really, really helpful. And yeah, just really did that remembrance of interconnectedness, because I think that is really one core thing that is challenging, isn't it? When we are in these trauma responses, when we're feeling like we're totally alone, is that we're not connected at all. And it can be a feeling of lostness and aloneness, can't it? And how can we help ourselves to really like fine tune or attune to that interconnectedness to support us to feel like we're moving with life.
And I think that's very difficult to do for people who are traumatized, because how our nervous system responds to trauma, normally healthy system, if we have all our systems on board, is the first thing we do is we engage our ventral vagal social engagement part. So we reach out to another human. If that is not available, our fight and flight is going to kick in. If that is not effective, our emergency freeze and depression, that's going to kick in to shut us down, because fight and flight is not sustainable indefinitely. So then our system puts emergency brakes. So we hold on to our resources so we don't just burn ourselves out and die. So, but the first thing is the social connection. For people who are traumatized, that is very often not available. They are stuck in a fight and flight, or they're stuck in freeze, or some combination of both. So one way to do this is to lean into this metaphor of mycelium. Are there people who represent what it is that I desire, who may know a little bit of more of what I want that I don't know? And in a safe, ginger way, and in a way that, very titrated way, slowly reach out. Maybe at first it's going to be following anonymously somebody's Instagram account. Maybe then would be a DM. Maybe then would be, watching somebody's masterclass. Maybe then would be joining some kind of free training with other people and start connecting to others. But really think of restoring social connection as a pathway towards healing. Because we heal in a community. It's incredibly hard. Trauma is isolating in and of itself. Healing from trauma on your own, it's like climbing a mountain without having trained. It's really, really, really hard. Is it impossible? No, it's not impossible. And it's really, really, really hard. And carrying trauma in the body is hard enough. So leaning into community, that's just an invitation, and do it in as slow and little titrated ways as you can take it. You get activated too much, just pull back. It's okay to pull back, regulate, calm down, and then reach again. And slowly it will, being around safe people, paying attention to how does this community make me feel? Do I want to expand or do I want to contract? And sometimes expansion is going to be very unsafe for somebody who's traumatized a lot. But just notice that there's expansion. And you go ahead and contract. That's okay. We're not going to make you wrong. But keep leaning towards even micro expansion until you can actually reach into and connect with another human.
I feel that is so nourishing to hear that way that you're talking about just finding the next opening. Because I feel in this coaching industry, there's so much around expansion and so much focus on expansion and kind of quantum leaping. And, it's very easy. I know for me personally, I have been there where I've been like chasing that and not being connected with where I'm at in my body. Where am I actually in my body? Because that is where I'm going to springboard back to every time. My mind is going, and my kind of visionary senses are going, I want to be over there doing that thing, but where am I here in my body? And how can I actually sustainably work towards that feeling in a way that's not going to like completely disassociate as well from where I'm at right now. And I feel like this is something that I'm really passionate about speaking to at this time, especially because I've seen a lot of burning out happening. I've seen a lot of disconnect from I don't know who I am now if I can't be that expanded version of self. All these things that because there's this industry that is making money and wanting to make money, and so there's this part of people that are like, yes, well, that's what I want. If that's the thing that I can have, that's available, then why can't I have it? And I feel like the trauma teachings and the nervous system teachings are so foundational to really allowing yourself to flourish in that way that you want to, but that is not compromising you and not re-traumatizing you and not making you feel wrong, bad, like just who am I?
Because I come from in my 20s, I was pathologically shy. I was so shy that the idea of somebody looking at me and saying hello would send me into a panic attack. So I get it. I understand what it feels like to live in a nervous system that has about a millimeter of capacity of connecting to being seen, being heard, being noticed. And even as I grew and healed and expanded this bandwidth, when there came contraction, there was so much shame, there was so much guilt. It's like, I really haven't done any work. I'm just deluding myself without understanding that that's just what nervous system does. You need to activate it to get out of bed in the morning. And then you're going to sit down and have a cup of coffee and you're going to calm down. And then you have to do something else. It's going to go up and it's going to go down. So this is actually storing the normal rhythm and making it okay for the nervous system to activate and relax. Activate and relax. It's what will restore the healthy rhythm and healthy beat of your nervous system. So being able to, okay, I'm going to expand and I'm just going to contract and I'm going to hold myself with love and compassion in that contraction until my system feels ready to move again, and making it perfectly normal and perfectly okay. So lots and lots and lots of compassion. And there's this kind of like hacking it. I totally see that. I see that sometimes with my clients. It's like, okay, I come here for trauma healing and I'm in the session and I need something to happen. And it's like, okay, I understand you want something to happen. Now let's talk to your body. It's what your body wants to do. And it takes a while because our minds are so conditioned to drive for performance. And it's not a woman's way. This is not a feminine way. Feminine way is undulating, is moving, it's creative chaos. So that means falling apart. I am still to this day, I have days when I'm complete slubbery mess, working through some dramatic things. Bless my partner. He's like, what do you need? Just tells like, okay, what do you need now? And days when I feel like God is on top of the world, and I love that range. Think of it as a range. Right now, you're really, really good at, if you are contracted and there's a lot of shame and guilt and all that, there's one end of the range. Let's open the range. Let's keep stretching the range, not by yanking it all the way to the other side, because then you're going to let go and you're going to flop right back, and it's like this dramatic thing. Just work by degrees. That's you can't screw this up. Like, it's your body, it's your nervous system. You can't screw it up as long as you don't hack it, force it, and push it, because that's an act of violence. To force upon the body something that the body's not ready for is an act of violence, and that is not what we need to be perpetrating in ourselves.
Oh, that is potent. Yeah, I really, really feel that in my body, that trying to push it again into something for the sake of wanting to heal it is doing the very thing that it doesn't want and doesn't need, which is more stress and shame and all the things. So I really feel that.
I remember when it dropped into my body one time, because I had a lot of, like anybody with trauma, lots of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of self-judgment, a lot of negative talk. When I realized, when it dropped in my body, that to tell any part of myself that it has to be fixed, that it has to change, that it has to be something that's not, is telling a living, breathing part of my consciousness that it has to die. That's not safe. That is not safe. So my motto in life is, all of me is welcome here. The beautiful, the smart, the efficient, the healed, and the messy, and the insecure, and the traumatized, and the wrinkly, and the all of that stuff. Like, all of this is welcome here. There's such an amazing freedom in this. My God.
Yes. And so powerful for the full range of the feminine, the fullness of that, and how I always come back to this. This is an integral part of my work, is look at nature as well. When you're feeling in those moments of, oh, who am I? What am I doing? Oh, I'm feeling all these things. Look at nature and look at her rhythms, look at her seasons, look at her cycles, look at her different faces, and see yourself. That you are connected to her, that you are part of her, and that she can be your teacher and your support in those moments. Like, remember that you are exactly as you should be, that you are designed to be this full range, and to really sink into that. That's part of the
Yeah,
process.
and I feel that as women, I think because we're such social creatures, that sometimes looking at nature is not enough because we have our little children that need approval, that
Mm,
need somebody to say that we are lovable when we are slobbering mess. And I think that's the where community of women comes is
yes.
so important. The tribe, women who, if you've been on the other side, hold the ones who are still going through it
Mm,
and create safety for them. And I think that's why affirming other women,
mm,
supporting other women, celebrating other women, even if I'm not successful at something, but you are, can I find it in my heart to celebrate it for you? Because this is how we rise. This is the mycelium. It's like everything grows when we all support each other to grow. And in that, there's a lot of safe spaces for those who struggle to actually be held. It's like a thread in a fabric. It's really
mm.
easy to break one. You weave it into a fabric, it's pretty damn strong.
Yeah, yeah, definitely the coming together and seeing yourself as well within others. Just this so powerful, isn't it? I really love that reminder of the circles within the circles, cycles within the
Mm.
cycles as well. That oh, it's just really rich when we can explore those parts of ourselves as well and explore that interconnectedness. Um, and so within your space, do you have like a group space or is it one-to-one mainly that you support
So
women with?
right now I work primarily one-to-one. I have twice a year, I have a 6 months program that it's a group program that is really reclamation, return. It morphs all the time based on the work that I've done. I think the next one I'm going to do, it's really reclamation, a return to the essence of the feminine
Mm,
through healing trauma
mm,
and through honoring grief. I think a lot of times in healing spaces, there's the emphasis on love and light,
mm,
goodness, and kind of moving through the other side without adequate safe spaces and adequate emphasis and attention on grief and letting go. We've talked about before we started recording. As a clinician, I take pretty comprehensive medical history, and I often ask women about their pregnancy history. And I find a lot of um, many women actually have experienced abortions. And I often, always ask them, have you grieved? Have you processed? And they're kind of taken aback because nobody ever asked them that. And I would say 98% of women will say no. They will often say, like, oh, it's been so long ago. But when
mm,
I insist on saying, have you actually grieved it? The answer is no. People losing their loved ones, women aging. I'm 54 years old. Going through menopause was rough, not just because of the physical changes, but there was such grief for
mm,
the loss of fertility,
mm.
for not that I wanted to have another child, God, no. And the fact that I couldn't, it was tremendous loss. And acknowledging that and feeling it and creating space where that can happen, that's what digests all the pain, all the things that we haven't done, that we couldn't have done, that we never will be able to do, and opening a space for expansion, for growth, for the next thing. So that's what my next program is going to be. I also have some free offerings. I do a women's embodiment, which is a 4-week program where I teach women who have never done this before, this kind of work, what embodiment is and how to start working with their bodies. So it's going to be an evergreen very soon with like live Q&A. So just if you are interested in working with me, just connect to my world. Just go to my website. There's a Venus starter kit. There's 4 basic practices that you can start. Get on my email list. I send newsletters once a month, probably not often, more often than that. So you're not going to get overwhelmed. And it's just starting conversation. So there's many different ways to work with me. I dance, grow, expand, and kind of respond to what's needed in this space.
Mm, mm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, that's such a feel like that in itself is a powerful teaching, isn't it? When you're learning and growing with the work that you're embodying yourself and then sharing, it's this kind of cosmic spiral, this dance of your own soul path and journey, and then what is like wanting
Yeah,
to be created. And I feel like that in itself is a really powerful process, isn't it? And then there's the
yeah,
holding space for the work, but your own kind of spiraling through the
yeah.
phases and cycles as a woman.
And you know, I love working with trauma, and it sounds really weird, but I feel like I am, excuse my French, but I am a fucking powerful holder of space.
Mm,
There is nothing people can throw at me that will make me flinch. I
mm,
can hold it all because I've been through it all.
yes.
So I think this is such a powerful impact of doing our own work in our own bodies, is
Mhm,
that I just can hold space for everything and anything. There's nothing that's going to make me flinch.
mm,
So I love this work because I'm not afraid of anything that comes at me.
mm, mm.
So I find it really, really, really juicy. And yes, to say I love trauma work can be triggering for people. And I don't love it because I revel in other people's pain. I love it because I see there's such incredible potential for aliveness in doing this work.
Yeah. You're not afraid to go into the dark soil and
Oh,
really move the life within that soil.
yes.
It's
Yeah.
powerful work. The shadow, the trauma, the depth of the darkness that we hold as a window to more of our light. And it's so important. It's so essential. And I can really feel that space when you're talking about it. Like, oh, it's the mother. It's mother
Yeah.
embodied in her fullest expression. She's not afraid. She is not afraid,
Mm-hmm.
and she is rooted. And I just, yeah, I love that. We need more spaces like that.
Yeah.
I believe in our culture and in our society to really bring through the next phase as well. I
Mm-hmm.
feel that as part of the rooted, new paradigm and feminine leadership is this depth of roots and all that you decompose within yourself to create new life, and how just potent that is as medicine. So,
Yeah, and going
oh,
back to your nature metaphor, it's like the darkness is the decomposing leaves, is the dirt, is without which there is no lush anything. So rather than, again, in our culture, we bleach so much. It's like, oh, we just want the good stuff. Without shadow, all you would have is just one big blob of light. Shadow differentiates light. It makes for this beauty. Like, can we
mm,
stop making ourselves wrong
yeah,
for our own darkness? This is part of our richness. This is part of our beauty. This is where our roots live, in
yeah,
the dark.
yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's a huge part of reclamation, isn't it? The
Mm-hmm.
uh, the power that we hold underneath the shame is immense,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
immense from however you've been taught to not connect with that part of yourself, whether that's religious teachings or whatever else. There's a deep, deep need for really replenishing ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
like not being stuck in that shame from what other people have told us about ourselves, and really getting to that deep
Yeah.
nourishment.
I always look at shame as this sword that's been
Mm,
used against us. Like, I'm just
yeah.
going to shame you into submission. And I
Mm,
look at it as in, I'm just taking the sword back. Like, I'm
yes.
just going to reclaim my shame. So
Mm,
I get to decide what I do with it.
yes.
And I don't have to get rid of shame. I have an amazing weapon.
Yes.
Uh, so yeah, reclamation of all of that and shame and guilt and whatever. It's just all part of the nuanced beauty of every human. And yes, we can go into the craziness that's happening in the world.
Mm,
That's shadow, that's distorted. I
mm,
think everything can be distorted. Light can be distorted too. Love and light can translate into toxic positivity,
mm,
and shadow can translate into toxic negativity. What
mm,
I'm talking about is reclamation of the nature. of both, which neither of them is toxic. They simply are.
Yeah, that beautiful essence of life.
Yeah, really.
Vitality.
Yeah. So we're talking big concepts, but I'm curious, what are the practical concerns, the practical questions that your audience struggles with that we could help them with today?
I feel the trauma piece was very essential that you spoke about, and the nervous system. And I think that's coming up a lot in the understanding of our healing, of that really it is within our bodies and not a kind of concept that keeps being kind of talked about. Healing, what is healing? And if there was something deeper that you could maybe share about the nervous system, I feel like that's a really powerful piece at the moment. How, for those who are watching who are kind of new to the idea of nervous system work, what would you offer as a kind of introduction to that, how to kind of connect or be with it?
All right, so let's talk conceptually for just 1 minute. If you ever watch National Geographic and you see animals and animals are threatened in some way, they usually activate a survival response. They have one of three options: fight, run, or freeze. If they survive, they usually go through some kind of discharge process. So they become aggressive or they shake, at which point they take a deep sigh and they go about their business. So they went from danger, activation, action, survival, discharge, safety, completion. They just completed the stress cycle. If you ever see a child, a toddler in tantrum, they're completing a stress cycle. They're acting like bats out of hell. But 5 minutes later, they're totally fine. Why? They've just completed the stress cycle. But what do we do as a society? Shut them down, blame them, shame them, send them in the corner, tell them to cut it out. And effectively, by the time we move through that period, we will have forgotten how to complete stress cycles. And we start collapsing stressor and stress. Stressor is the things that make us stress. It's the situations, it's the people, it's the pandemics, it's the traumatic events. Stress is a cascade of biochemical changes preparing your body for action or survival. Once that is on track, it's a runaway train. There's absolutely nothing you can do to stop it. The only thing you can do is to discharge and complete it. But because we forgot how to do that, we never complete stress cycles. And that continues living in your system as an incomplete potential for action, incomplete tension and activation that the body did to protect itself, that never completed. So the body, as a consequence, never arrived at safety. And it keeps running the cycle forever. Why? Because the part of the nervous system that initiates fight, flight, or freeze, it's the deepest, oldest, primal part of our nervous system that developed way before our thinking brain did, consequently has no access to language. So you can talk about stress to the blue in the face. You're going to have a lot of understanding, maybe some coping mechanisms, but you're not going to get it out of your body. That has to be done in a body language. And what is the body language? It's symbols, it's rituals, it's sound, it's movement, it's breath. This is the language that the body understands. Every indigenous culture has rituals, has songs, has dances, has movement, because they understood that this is not something that we can move through. So when we talk about nervous system, if you look at the nervous system that way, through that lens, you can see that 95% of people don't suffer from mental health illness. They suffer from chronically dysregulated nervous system. The body always wants to regulate itself. So what we need to do is we need to give it an opportunity to do so. A nervous system and stress is always about survival. So there's a threat, there's a survival response. So how do you complete stress cycle? You have to bring your body back to safety. So we need to discharge the accumulated potential. It requires a couple things. Take the foot off the brake and off the accelerator, which means don't feed into the story, talk about it, think about it, obsess about it, because that just fuels the response. And also don't numb and distract and pretend it's not there. So we just need to get those out of the way. And then we need to connect to the body and notice what's happening here. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you feel like it's too much, like you want to run away, get away from a situation, that's a run response. That's best discharged by some kind of movement. So going for a walk, going for a jog, dancing, shaking, like standing and just shaking your body, and emotions may come up, thoughts may come up. That's okay. Just go back to movement and keep just moving your body until you feel that this all fizzles out, at which point the most important piece comes, which everybody forgets, is safety. It's not enough to do a discharge. We have to actually signal to the body that in this moment, even if it's relative safety, in this moment we've survived. So you can look around your room, you can tap on your body, you can give yourself a hug, you can just wait for your system to go, oh, I've survived. Now you've completed a stress. If you feel anger and rage, awesome. The same thing. If this sensation could move, how would it move? If it could sound, how would it sound? Move this. And again, at the end, always completion. If you feel more of a depressed, kind of listlessness, more of the frozen state, that's a freeze response. You can't hack that. You cannot exercise that away. You cannot talk yourself out of it. So the idea of if you feel like you just should muscle in, people don't understand that depression is our nervous system's last ditch effort at safety. That means we feel so unsafe that the only way we can survive is to shut us down. Your nervous system always works for you. Always. It's always on your side. So the only way you open a nervous system is by creating tremendous amount of safety. The internal safety we talked about, no judgment, all of you is welcome here. Doing anything basically that makes you feel safe. Once that opens up, rage and overwhelm will come, because how you go in is how you come out. So we start with flight, fight, freeze, fight, flight, regulation. A lot of times when rage and overwhelm comes up, people get freaked out and go right back into freeze. Understand this is just normal. This is how the nervous system regulates itself. Complete those cycles, and you will have discharged that out of your system. So is that helpful? Just a little overall.
Just a little taste. That was like a class. That was great. That was so great. And I feel like that's a perfect ending for people to go away and take us a lot of like great juicy information, as well as what we shared before, and then to reach out if you want more support. And also I'll have all your links below this video so that they know where to reach out to you. And that was great. Thank you so much. That was so full and rich and the whole range. I feel we went there. So that was beautiful.
Thanks for having. I love having these conversations, because there's not enough spaces for us to do that. So
I know. I think that when we
just connect,
I know, because when we do, it's just like I want more. I mean, I get that feeling for me personally. I'm like, I just want more of these spaces.
Yeah, it just feels so nourishing and so like, so just yummy.
Yeah, and it makes us so alive, doesn't it? Because we just that connection and that receptivity and that just like co-creation is so powerful. So here for it. So thank you so much. And
thank you.
Thank you everyone for watching. And remember, you can always ask any questions or comment below. And we can get back to you. So sending you all so much love. See you later.
Bye.